this happens, which it will, it's going to create a void on linear TV. And I get that cord cutters are a thing. I'm a cord cutter. I have YouTube TV. So I technically have like cable without cable, right? But if on linear TV there is a void left, if people have gotten used to for 30 years on Monday nights tuning into USA Network or whatever channel and watching Monday Night Raw, and they are not a fan of having to sign up and pay additional money every month for Netflix, is this the perfect void for AEW to fill? Like, did they just serve this up? They got $500 million a year. I don't fault TKO or the WWE for doing it. By all means, it's great business. But if you're AEW, you've now been gifted Monday nights on linear TV. How do you not have a conversation with Warner Brothers Discovery, who presumably will now re-up with AEW? How do you not have the conversation about moving Collision or Dynamite to Mondays? You're going to pick up people. You're going to have to. Because not every consumer, not every fan who watched WWE Raw on linear TV is going to pay to watch it on Netflix. And if that's the case, and there's a void, and people are creatures of habit, that's the smartest thing to do. It's the best business AEW can do, is try to fill that void. Now I want to go here to Ethan on a forklift over on YouTube. What effect does this have on their documentary production? I don't know. I mean, you would think that on one level, you're probably going to see more and more specials, right? Like you would have to assume that you're going to see more high quality specials. I mean, you look at the popularity of the show, the wrestlers that covered OVW. It was huge. It had a great audience. It picked up a ton of buzz on social. What you ended up seeing was it had an impact on OVW's business. They had additional investors come in after the show aired. And then you've also seen that it's going to likely get re-upped for another season or two. You saw Mickie James now moved over there to work with talent. So that had a direct impact on OVW's business. One has to assume that the number of documentaries, which includes, I believe, the Vince McMahon documentary that's been talked about ad nauseum, that's going to come out. That's certainly going to cause a lot of interest. It's going to garner a lot of interest among the wrestling community and non-wrestling community alike. I'll go back to Ethan here on YouTube. Another big question, where does this leave TNA with rumors of Anthem giving them permission to shop the TV rights? It is a great question. It's a great point. And again, like if it's me, I'm certainly looking, if I'm a wrestling company and I'm looking to build my viewership, I understand that there is a massive issue with Monday Night Football. I get it. That's 17 weeks out of the year. And then sometimes 18 if they have a wild card round like happened this year. So you're looking at 17, maybe 18 weeks out of a 52-week year where there is NFL football. That's it. I think sometimes that gets overrated. I think it gets overblown. I get that it happens during a very important period of the calendar and that during the summer, numbers typically tend to go down, and that also happens to be when there's no NFL football on Monday. But I do think that if you're TNA, you have to now consider, do we go back? I mean, TNA has gone into those waters before. Do they potentially look to go on to Monday nights to try to pick up that linear TV audience? I don't know if I would do it, especially considering where they've been at with Access TV and with their lack of public and national exposure. I think it's been very hard to find the TNA product, even though it's been a very good product, especially of late. I just don't see how you go from what is viewed as not much exposure to then saying, we're going to try to fill that Monday night void. I don't see it. I could be wrong. Ethan also points out they average about 100,000 viewers a week. If they could double it, it's impressive. It would be. But are you going to do it on a Monday night? Like, I'm not so sure. Again, I think AEW is the better play here to try to capture that habitual pro wrestling audience that's looking for it on TV. But I could be wrong. I think it's more likely what you see is, like, could a TNA look to land with, it likely wouldn't be a Universal property, so it wouldn't be an NBC. Could you look and see potentially, now that Disney had perhaps had interest through FX, could TNA look to land on FX? That'd be pretty great. Somebody clip this. because that to me, if I were trying to market the rights to TNA, I would be looking at every rumored company that had interest in AEW rights or had interest in WWE rights. And assuming that Disney was involved and that Disney was interested in marketing and potentially moving a pro wrestling show to FX, that's where I'd go if I were TNA. And I think it makes a ton of sense. You could then perhaps pick up some streaming. I know that they have their TNA Plus subscription service, but like you could very well look at, hey, now we're going to add it to Hulu, that like all of the TNA pay-per-views, premium live events as they're now calling them, are going to be on Hulu. Like that to me is interesting. I think that makes all the sense in the world. I don't see them landing on like an ESPN Plus, because I still think that in the grand scheme of things, ESPN as an entity wants to keep sports entertainment and sports separate, right? Now, if it's a TKO combined package, you know, if you were to ever see a moment where TKO, where Endeavor decides we're going to buy TNA, well, then it's certainly interesting, right? Like there were those rumors out there about like, could we see a scenario where the WWE, where their parent company Endeavor goes out and buys TNA? Like, could you then see an FX with a streaming deal that happens where you see like some synergy, a little bit of crossover with ESPN Plus? Like maybe it's possible, but I don't see that yet. So there's that part of this.